for this week, when I was thinking of what I should share about, I was really inspired by last week's talk on purpose and like the meaning of life. And as I was personally reflecting, something that really resonated with me was the fact that our journeys, like along our journeys, we're really called to serve. There's no real destination that you reach where, okay, now is the time where, God's going to use me, I'm going to be serving and blessing others. Rather, there's path of purpose where as we are going, we're serving and blessing others. And essentially, some of the notes that I wrote down, some of the thoughts that I had is that essentially the season that we're in, we should embrace and live and serve in. Oftentimes, we're looking for the next big thing, like the big promotion or the big breakthrough. But when we live in this mindset, what we're actually doing is limiting the work that God can do through us. Sometimes I think, okay, once I get to this position, then I'll serve God. Once I get into this degree, or maybe once I'm married, or once I have kids, that's the perfect scenario. I'll set myself up, I'll be secure, and then I can serve and bless others through that. But no, that's not really what the Bible says. When we look at the writings of Paul, like, no, your singleness is a gift. And there are circumstances there where if you're not tied down to particular obligations, you might actually be more able to serve others and bless others and allow God to. So yeah, same goes with degrees and jobs. Like once I get this specific position, that's when things are going to change. That's when I'm going to be more receptive to God and be able to bless. But that's not necessarily the truth. When we're serving God, it really is an active process. That's something that I really want to get across. It's an active process where through your words and actions, you're serving and blessing others. It's a daily death to the selfish desires, your own selfish desires. It's not a box that you check. You're like, all right, cool. Once my life's on track, yep, all right, now is time to engage in service. I think about it in my own life, like as I'm going on my own journey. Sometimes I actually have that mindset, and it's not good. Where I'm like, okay, currently I'm a uni student, so I don't know, like I can't really, serve and bless others through that. Where that inherently is limiting my ability to serve and bless others. Where if I just step back from that situation and realize how the many ways God can use me in that current position, then I'll see fruit being bed in that scenario. So what I really wanted to talk about with you guys is the story of Joseph. We've probably heard it a bunch, but it really captures the essence of what I'm trying to get across today. It's the epitome of serving in spite of one's circumstance. So I'm going to read a bit of it, and just to set the scene, so out of hatred, Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery, which is quite intense. And it got me thinking, like, how would you feel? Like, all right, you're just this guy, he's about 17 at this time, and you've just been sold into slavery. Would you be feeling betrayed, wronged? Like, I'd be thinking, like, God, how could you allow this injustice to occur? Like, I don't see how this is a positive in any way, shape, or form. So let's just read Genesis 39. I'm going to read the first 6 verses together. Get your Bibles out. You have them on and we'll follow along. I'm reading from the ESV. So 39 verses 1 to 6. Okay. So now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had brought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had, in house and field. So he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. Wow. So it's clearly evident in the text that Joseph is being used in his situation, despite how wronged he may have initially felt. Joseph could have sat there and be like, you know what? This is unfair. It's unjust. Like the situation I've been placed in shouldn't have happened. I don't understand how God could have forsaken me like that. And I'm not into it. I don't like what's going on. But no, that's not the attitude that Joseph has. He recognizes that this is a situation where I can really serve God in. It's not about this end destination. It's about this path that he's on. God's clearly placed Joseph in that situation for a reason. So despite being so clearly wrong, Joseph saw that he could use his current position to bless others, to work hard, not for Potiphar, but for the Lord. Joseph's attitude to his current predicament is a perfect representation of that which Paul writes about in Colossians 3:23. I have it here. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for human masters. We see this attitude in Joseph, the way he diligently applies himself in the house, and all that he does is blessed by the Lord. Things are going well. So things are going well for Joseph. He's serving in the house. There's this abundance within the Egyptian master's household. He's entrusted with all these duties. Joseph's chilling. He's serving the Lord. And you're thinking, yeah, wow, God, you really use Joseph's unjust circumstances. It's great. And then things begin to collapse again. He's falsely accused of trying to sleep with Potiphar's wife, and so he's thrown into prison. Now, if I were Joseph personally, I want you guys to reflect this. Like, how would you feel if you were Joseph? Like, you've been sold into slavery, and then you're like, all right, you know what? I'm going to apply myself. And you see all this fruit being bared and this blessing and this growth in the household that you've been working in. And then it's like it's all gone down the drain again. You feel pretty deflated. You've been working really hard to glorify God in the position that He's placed you in, and now you're thrown into prison for a crime you didn't commit. I'd be thinking, like, really, God? I don't get it. How could you do this after I'm serving you here? Like, I'm trying to bless others in the position that you've granted. But you see, Joseph again saw an opportunity to serve. And in the prison, the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Even in these circumstances, even when he felt like he could have felt like, God, you've abandoned me. Like, what is there for me to gain through service to you? But no, Joseph again chose to see that God's placed him in this particular situation. How can he serve others on this path? Joseph knew that even in these circumstances, God could use him in this situation. So we know Joseph goes on to interpret the dreams of the king's servants, and he becomes the right-hand man of Pharaoh himself and saves Egypt and the surrounding areas from a devastating famine, really devastating famine. But I really just wanted to highlight in this short time Joseph's beginnings, like the attitude that Joseph has where he's clearly been wrong, his character's been attacked, he's been sold into slavery. It would have been so easy to give up and say, no, like, this isn't for me. The place that I'm currently in, God, I'm not going to serve you because of what's been going on around me. And we see that despite him being a young man, it was around 17 when he was sold into slavery, he served God diligently in the house of Potiphar. And in spite of all that occurred to him and all the wrongdoing, he continued to serve God in each and every situation that God placed him in. And when you take a step back, you clearly see God's hand in Joseph's life. In every situation that Joseph was in the prison, in Potiphar's house, even when he rises up to the right hand of Pharaoh, you see God working in his life. See, Joseph could have easily said, like earlier, he could have said, like, once I'm this or once I'm that. But if he ignored the situation that was right before him, like if we apply to our own lives here, if we are so hesitant to allow God to engage in our current scenario, whether it be like your current job, perhaps you believe like your job is a gateway, like it's an entry-level job, and like, okay, God can't really use me here, like I'm just in this small degree, like I'm in Potiphar's house, it's fine, there's only a couple of other people here, like what could I really do? Like, no, it's the wrong attitude to have. God really wants you to engage with him to bless those immediately around you and allow him to use you in that situation that he's placed you in. So we can really learn a lot from Joseph that in spite of the circumstances, he continued to serve God in all these situations. Um, and we see that God clearly worked through him to bless those around him and eventually save many from starvation. So I really wanted us to reflect on some of these points that I wrote down here. So when we bring it all back, I want us to really be aware of the situation we're in, the season of life that we're currently traveling. God's placed us there or where we are for a purpose. So whether we're, okay, I'm just a student, like, no, there are actually a lot of avenues for you to serve and bless others and minister to others in that situation. The second thing I wanted to bring up is don't see your current situation as empty or just a stepping stone. God has called you to serve others in the position you've been granted. So I had this like mindset like, oh, it's just an entry level thing, or oh, it's just 1 degree before I do my master's or something like that. It's really the wrong mindset and it limits yourself. You're saying like, God, you can't really use me right now, but once I get to that final place, once I reach that final milestone, whereas God's saying, no, like look at where you are right now, the people I've placed in your life, the things you're doing currently, I can really use you there. The third thing I wrote down and want us to reflect on is that even when things aren't going as you planned in your mind, as in the case of Joseph, his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. See how God can use you to serve him and bless those around. In light of this, I want to pose these questions to us today. So the first thing that I want us to reflect and think about is, have you been viewing your current situation as somewhat of an avenue instead of a position where you can serve God? The second question that I want us to think about is, how can you serve God in the position you've currently been granted, whether it be a job that you think will only be for a few years or a degree that you're studying to get somewhere else or something like that? How can you serve God in that position? And thirdly, has God placed certain people in your life through these positions, through these circumstances, that you can bless and serve as we speak, or as you reflect, are there certain people that you think, okay, yeah, that person, yeah, in my degree, I could really, minister, reach out to them, serve them. So I really want us to see how Joseph used such dire and bleak circumstances, being thrown into prison unjustly, really to serve God, and it should act as a reminder that God really wants to use us where we are, rather than once we reach a certain